I'd like to call the October 18th meeting of the Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency Board of Directors meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please establish a quorum.
Matt Conant. Nick Abdis.
Here.
Tom Barandas. Here. Brian Holloway. Here. Cyril Shaw. Angelique Ashby. Jeff Harris. Here. Rick Jennings. Sue Frost. Here. Don Natoli. Howard Schmidt. Here. Patrick Kennedy. Here. Lisa Nava. Here. We do have a quorum.
Great.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting of SAFCA is being broadcast live and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14 and will be re-aired on Friday, October 19th at 3 p.m. and also Saturday, October 20th at 2 p.m. This meeting is also webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv, and streaming video of the board meeting is available on SAFCA's website within 48 hours after the meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, I'd like to, I don't have any speaker slips, but I don't think there's any members of the public that would like to speak on items not on the agenda.
And so our first item would be closed session as listed on the agenda, and you will be in hearing room 2.
Great. I'm going to adjourn for closed session. I'd like to call this meeting back in order. Madam Clerk, please reestablish a quorum.
Matt Conant. Here. Nick Aptis.
Here.
Tom Barandas. Here. Brian Holloway. Here. Cyril Shaw. Angelique Ashby. Here. Jeff Harris. Here. Rick Jennings. Here. Sue Frost. Here. Don Natoli. Here. Howard Schmidt. Here. Patrick Kennedy. Here. Lisa Nava. Here. We do have a quorum.
Great. Do we have a report out?
Report out on Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators regarding property at 4110 Garden Highway, Sacramento County, California. Negotiating party, Surindra D. Sharma et al.
The board, upon motion by Director Harris, seconded by Director Jennings, moved to approve the settlement and authorize staff to proceed, the details of which will be made public when it's reduced to writing.
Thank you. Government Code Section 54956.8, conference with real property negotiators regarding property at 3000 Garden Highway, Sacramento County, California. Negotiating party, Colleen Matsumoto et al. Property at 4106 Garden Highway, Sacramento, California. Negotiating party, TBS Family Limited Partnership. Property at 4100 Garden Highway, Sacramento County, California. Negotiating party, Rebecca Robinson. Property at 3800 Garden Highway, Sacramento County, California. Negotiating party, Carol Johnson et al. Property at 3540 Garden Highway, Sacramento County, California. Negotiating party, Ann Amioka et al.
So Chair Abdis recused himself from the last item, the 3540 Garden Highway property owned by Ann Amioka et al. All of these items were informational only. No action was taken.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please call the first item.
If I may weigh in a second, I believe the chair recused themselves from the 3000 Garden Highway.
Yeah, 3000 Garden Highway.
Matsumoto.
Thank you.
Got that. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett.
Our
Matsumoto,
first
not
item are consent matters, and items 1 through 11.1 are in order.
Have any questions? I'll take a motion.
Move consent.
I got a motion from Member Harris, second from Member Kennedy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Thank you. Separate matters, item 12, resolution number 2018102, authorizing the executive director to execute contract change order number 4 for the North Area Streams Levee Improvement Project, Sacramento County, California, contract 4355 with Nordic Great Lakes E&I JV.
Good afternoon, Pete Gelfi, Director of Engineering. This is the levee improvement project for Arcade Creek and portions of the NEMDEC. As can be expected with construction projects, there are needs for change orders along the way. This change order is change order number 4 that was of sufficient size. As you can see, there is numerous items in this change order, and we are seeking your approval for this change order to include it into the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Gelfi. Any questions on this item? I'll entertain a motion.
Move it. Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Holloway, second Mr. Conant. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 13, resolution number 2018-103, authorizing the executive director to enter into a floodplain management services agreement between SAFCA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to advance implementation of multi-objective water resource projects in the Yolo Bypass Cache Slough Complex.
Good afternoon, Chair Advis, Kerry Bardini, Director of Planning with SAFCA. Before you is a resolution for a 3-year agreement for floodplain management services for $400,000. The agreement is for $420,000, of which the Corps of Engineers will provide a contribution of $20,000. These services are an ongoing effort for planning for increasing the flood objectives within the Yolo Bypass and Sacramento Bypass, and continue to go for 500-year protection for the city. It also is to advance the delivery of a number of projects, including the American River Common Features and the Thomas. More specific with these activities is we're looking to continue to address the hydraulic and hydrology related to permitting on the Yolo Bypass. It's also reflected to our facilitation work, working with the regional partners and continuing to look at multi-benefits and some of the projects that we're moving forward in Yolo. More specific on the Yolo Bypass partnership, which I'll speak for a moment, is right now we're in the efforts of having a master plan within the Yolo. This is an ongoing effort working through the partnership. There is an effort with the state, federal, and local agencies to reconvene an overall partnership in November. We're looking for the Corps with their planning staff to participate and continue to promote the coordination at the federal level. Also, we look to continue the further pilot feasibility studies and looking for how to modify or continue the efforts on the upper bypass and Fremont Weir. With that, I'd be happy to take any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bardini. A question from Member Harris.
Actually, it's not a question. I just wanted members to know that I've been attending these meetings, the Lower Sacramento Delta North Partnership, and all of these projects make a tremendous amount of sense in terms of furthering our flood control projects, and the collaboration of all the various entities in the Yolo Bypass and Cache Slough area is going to be very valuable moving forward.
No, we appreciate those efforts, Mr. Harris. Thank you. I don't have any speaker slips on this item, and I should have mentioned it on the last one. I didn't have any either. So with that,
I'll move the item.
Second. I have a motion, Mr. Harris, second, Mr. Kennedy. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, next item, please.
Item 14, resolution number 2018-104, adopting an encroachment removal incentive policy and authorizing the executive director to implement a voluntary encroachment removal incentive program.
Good afternoon, Chair Abdus.
Oh, let's turn
Here we
that
go.
on. There you
Are
go.
we on now? All right.
Yep.
Chair Abdus, members of the board, Jason Campbell, Deputy Executive Director. The item before you today is the adoption of a policy for us to provide incentives for individuals to voluntarily remove their encroachments on the levee system. Today I have a presentation that talks about what we anticipate the program to look like following the adoption of the policy. I can go through that quickly if you'd like, or we can go ahead and forego that. However, what I would like to say is that at this point in time, Nothing has really changed since we presented this in August. We've got a little bit more detail, and I have a schedule in the back of when we could go ahead and bring this forward if that's what you would prefer to see.
Does anybody have a preference? If you've reviewed, everybody good? You good? Okay, I think we're good with the short presentation.
All right, so here we go. The background is that many years ago, the city and the county adopted the NFIP program, and part of that program requires that levies to be certified every 10 years. Included in that certification is the dealing with encroachments that may be causing a hazard on those levee infrastructures. In addition to that, California SB 5 adopted a number of standards under ULOP and ULDC, which also tries to address those levee standards and the removal of encroachments. SAFCA, as you know, has 105 miles of levees in our jurisdiction, and we have an estimated at this point in time of about 2,900 encroachments that include a number of fences, landscaping, retaining walls, etc. In order to continue to make sure that we have coordination with our partner entities, we have to work through these encroachments as we move forward with projects as well as the certification process. Some of these encroachments that exist are currently not permitted, and many of them are permitted. In order to address these, we have to be able to just make sure that we are addressing all of the encroachments. Therefore, we have to coordinate with the Corps of Engineers, who certifies levees, as well as the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, and of course our local maintaining agencies. SAFCA's voluntary program that is being proposed as part of this policy, or coming forward after the policy is adopted, is intended to expedite the encroachment removal process. Currently, the Central Valley Board has an enforcement process which could be very lengthy and a bit onerous for the board. However, we would like to be able to work with our property owners and be able to get these encroachments removed expeditiously in advance of projects, as well as in advance of 2025 deadline for certification. For eligibility on an incentive approach, we are funding these incentives hopefully under the CCAD 2 Capital Assessment District. The assessment district has levee modernization funding built in that would cover these expenses, and we are expecting that the eligibility requirements mean that those things need to be, those encroachments that are receiving incentives need to be a part of or within the jurisdiction of CCAD 2. In addition, the encroachments, regardless of permitted or not permitted, whatever their status may be with the Central Valley Board, we would like to make sure that the incentives are available to all of those in order to get them removed. The program approach is to provide an incentive for an encroachment. The incentives are based on the replacement value of what that encroachment might be, and the standard incentives we would like to bring forward would be incentives for stairs, number of lineal feet of stair, walls, depending on the lineal feet or square footage of a wall face, gates, fences, etc. Those standard items are fairly easy to value and wouldn't require, if we have a fixed number, wouldn't require a tremendous amount of consultant time or staff time to evaluate and come up with estimates of what the value might be for the incentive. But then we also have another set of issues with encroachments, which we have swimming pools and buildings and other things, which would take a much more in-depth look. The incentive structure and program costs for the program, obviously I just mentioned that the fixed incentives for the smaller items and then the incentive values for some of the much larger items like swimming pools and whatnot. Regardless, we understand that there are also some permit fees and things that are coming forward from the Central Valley Board upon their adoption that we would like to make sure that we recognize, because that would be a cost to a property owner if we are taking something away from them for a project and they want to put that item back. We want to make sure that they're being made whole for that future action. So this incentive program is intended to potentially have the permit fees included. We would work with the property owner in that regard. Estimated costs for this current fiscal year, we could anticipate spending as much as $750 million, that would be great, $750,000 or $1 million to keep this thing moving. The owner outreach is something that's very near and dear to SAFCA. We want to make sure that we have good, clear communication. We have an outreach structure that we're developing at this point in time There's a number of components to that outreach, including an initial letter. The letter will talk about the programs that SAFCA has, the core projects, the SAFCA projects, as well as the interface with the Central Valley Board and the requirements that we have. In addition, the property owner will receive an exhibit identifying what zones we're looking at as far as where the levee is, the easements that are in place, where the contract or the project limits might be, so that we can have a good dialogue and informative dialogue regarding the incentives that are being offered and what encroachments need to be removed. In addition to that, we're doing a little self-help opportunity for the property owner. Fill out a form, go ahead and let us know if you want us to come talk to you or if you want to do that. This is, again, still just very draft and it's the concept at this moment. Then we have a much more informational packet talking about you live behind a levee and a number of other things that will help inform the property owners about their neighborhood and the proximity to the levee and what that means. And furthermore, we will, like I said, get a little bit more in depth and detail about what it means to be up against the levee and have encroachments. This example actually identifies a construction zone as well as an easement that may not necessarily coincide with one another. And for construction projects, we may want to ask for those encroachments to be removed, provide incentives for those encroachments to be removed so we can expeditiously embark on the construction activities. So one of the primary functions of the incentive program is to get an agreement with the property owner or the encroachment owner. And the owner would participate in these discussions. We would have this agreement define exactly what the incentives are covering and be able to understand how that interface is going to work with the Central Valley Flood Protection Board for the permitting process or any future permitting processes, as well as how that interacts with our certification process or the delivery of the project. Most importantly here is what we're anticipating. Today is October of 2018, and here we are trying to get a policy adopted. Hopefully things are moving forward as progressing, hopefully things are moving forward as planned. The final, we anticipate finalizing the implementation of these documents probably between now and the early parts of January, with some initial encroachment owner outreach happening in very early spring and in through the summer, with some real estate clearance for some project activities primarily related to WRDA 2016 and Natomas in the spring of 2020. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take this at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Member Natoli?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, you, in one of the slides, pointed out you've inventoried 2,900 plus or minus encroachments. How much in this first reach, what's the number there, and how did you arrive at the estimation between $750,000 and $1 million? It must be based upon calculating that you're going to have a certain amount of takers along the way and so forth. So could you elaborate on that?
Sure. The first reach is actually 64 properties.
Okay.
We're guessing that at this point in time, we're going to have about 150 encroachments roughly. Those encroachments vary in type and size. Some of those encroachments could be much more valuable than others.
They fall in the category of pools, buildings, or structures?
We have a couple. We don't have any pools or buildings that we're anticipating in this first phase, okay, unless the property owner wants to volunteer to have the pool removed. At this point, we're really focusing on the construction zone in the first phase, okay, and that construction zone does not have any swimming pools in it, thank goodness. Okay. So at this point, we're really focusing on stairs, retaining walls, landscaping, in some cases fences, and other components like that.
And when you say landscaping, do you have mature trees in there? So you're going to alter the view shed potentially or significantly?
Yeah, in the construction zone, yes, there are trees that are located that will be discussed as part of the landscaping. In many cases, the trees that have already been identified as part of the project are being addressed through the project in that manner. In the landscaping discussion, we're primarily talking about ground cover. Some folks have placed fountains or irrigation systems into the levee section.
And one other question as it relates to re-permitting, is it anticipated that for the most part, because you talk about either permitted or unpermitted encroachments at this point in time, but is anticipated then might be of a different style or construct, but that most of the structures that you've just described in the additional setback area could be re-permitted, or is that just a case by case, and is it likely that a number of those encroachments would not be re-permitted no matter under what circumstance? And I guess, because that's going to, I think, enter into the thinking of some of the folks you're going to be approaching with this voluntary program.
So the abundance of the first phase,
Yes.
There's stairs, retaining walls, fences, and landscaping. All of those things under Title 23 can be permitted to go back if they're installed in the design guidelines from ULDC in mind. So those things could be permitted. However, on the landscaping side and some of the utilities that might be out there, depending on the depth and other components, there may be some things that will not be permitted. But the lion's share of what we're talking about are things like stairs and walls that could be permitted.
And then one follow-on in regards to stairs, I trust those are from somewhere at the toe of the levee to the upper reaches of the levee or the crown. Is there the ability with the construction to then work with property owners in the construct of this agreement that, you know, it might be some offsetting compensation and or maybe it's a wash as it relates to re-permitting and reconstructing, but that they could build that into, so at the time the work is done, the replacement, assuming there was a proper encroachment, could be built into the construction project, that we or whoever's going to oversee there would do that, or is it always a separate action?
Well, I wouldn't say it's always a separate action, but I think that what we envision with the expeditious delivery of WRDA 2016, that anything we can get done prior to and not have be part of the construction project is going to make that process a little bit more simple for construction.
What about stairs, though? I mean, if you're going to do are you going to do any work on the backside of the levee that then you'd have to have a period of time while you do whatever we're going to do before you could actually put stairs? Say you remove them and you could get permitted to replace those. I guess my point being is that, you know, while people are mobilized out there, and if there's a certain way it has to be done, and the homeowner would agree, could that be done as a part of the project, or is that not part of the discussion?
I don't think it's part of the discussion at this point in time with the Corps. The replacement of the stairs, however, I think we would want to time the removal of the stairs with the project, and when the project is completed, the homeowner should be able to
goes back in there and it has to get a separate permit to put it in.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Gilchrist, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I would just point out that the permitting process is totally up to the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. So it's really out of our hands whether or not they re-permit something. It's not our decision.
Okay, so then I trust that's going to be crystal clear, because it's one thing to say, well, we'll give you this money so you can go seek a new permit. You know, that's a different board. They may have a whole different view about encroachments. And I think we need to be really clear, because, not that we would mislead anybody intentionally. I'm not
and we are coordinating closely with the Central Valley Board.
Yeah, so that I think that we at least transmit accurately. Again, recognizing permits may be a discretionary action, unless they're ministerial in some cases, that, you know, once acquired, you may not get that back. Under any circumstance. Doesn't matter. You built it to, you know, whatever today's standards are. That needs to be crystal clear, because if you're going with a voluntary approach in a cooperative fashion, and, you know, we're going to hold your hand to some degree and be there with you, but then I think Central Valley Board needs to be really clear about, and I'm not so sure they're going to be as clear as Safeco is on certain things.
Many of the existing permits since the 60s, I think, or 70s, have a condition in there that they can, the permit can be revoked, and whatever was under the permit would have to be removed at the discretion of the board. Any permit they issue now has that language.
We piqued my interest because, again, you know, we're doing this, they're not doing that. They've, you know, we've been talking about that before, and obviously there are folks that are closer to this because it's areas they represent immediately in the city or in the county. But I guess I'm just curious are they going to be clear to us about what their views are on encroachments? Because
yes, we're working very closely with them.
Because if they're going to kind of be, you know, guess what? You volunteered, you knew it was, you know, revocable, but by virtue of volunteering, that revocation becomes a very permanent status, because we're never going to issue a permit again under any circumstance. And I think if that's the case, I want to be really clear with folks that, you know, we can work with you voluntarily, and we might assist you in making it, but that's, it's up to them, and, I don't want to play any hide the pea with folks,
No,
because I
we'll
think
be
we-
very
Yeah,
transparent.
okay, thanks.
Member Harrison and Mr. Brandis.
Thank you, Chair. Holly, does the Central Valley Board have a printed set of criteria by which they might permit any kind of encroachment?
It's in Title 23. I don't know if they have separate criteria, printed criteria. They do analyze, they look at the plans and specs. I don't believe they have separate criteria. Maybe one
Our
of
engineers are going to chime in.
engineers can chime in on that.
Title 23 has, about 50 pages of what is and what is not acceptable, and also how to go about submitting a permit. So there are standards that are in the regulations, which is Title 23, that the board will, and the board staff will review as someone comes in with a permit application. There are minimum standards, and then if something doesn't quite fit the standard, they'll have to interpret for that.
Well, I think that's germane, because if somebody is going to lose an encroachment, for them to understand what would be worth applying for is a piece of information that really lends itself to the transparency. The fact of the matter is, many of these encroachments will come out and they would not be permitted to be replaced because many are non-conforming. But with that information and those pages that you alluded to, I think people could get the transparency that they need in terms of moving forward, deciding whether or not to apply for a permit.
Yes, in the stairs in a number of the areas, they're wooden stairs, or they're railroad tie stairs. Things like that are not permitted type of material, but if you were going to put back concrete stairs, then those have been more or less acceptable in most areas.
Yeah,
So
okay,
it's
important
changing
information.
certain things to update the encroachment to current standards.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mr. Brandis.
Yeah, Jason, I was just wondering, in this program, do you have a role for the levee maintenance agencies, or is this separate and distinct?
I wouldn't say it's separate and distinct. We obviously have to coordinate with the levee maintaining agencies to be able to be aware of what the encroachments are, first of all. The encroachments are identified in many different documents as part of the inspection process, as well as through the databases provided by the Central Valley Board or the independent databases that the LMAs or other maintainers may have. So we have to coordinate through those efforts. As far as the re-permitting or anything else, obviously that process is known to the LMAs for any permits that come forward. Our coordination is definitely going to be, as we bring this program on board, we're really focused currently on project delivery and making sure we're clearing the path, but this is really a long-term project or program to be able to address these encroachments as we move forward for the long haul, because there are going to be encroachments that are identified 10 years from now that may not have existed today, that are hazardous or are part of the program, and they need to be coming off of the levee to be, so that levee can be certified, whatever that certification process is at that time. So there are these incentives available for a long haul to make sure that these encroachments are removed, and that's going to be in direct coordination with RD 1000, American River, the city, the county, MA9, any of our LMAs.
And this first group that you've identified, I guess, that is what location or where?
Well, the first group that we're identifying very specifically is the Sac River East Levee, which is part of our WRDA 2016, formerly known as the LAP project. The segments along the Sacramento River, down in the pocket and little pocket areas, one area. We have other projects that are going on, and we want to be able to expand the program very quickly to address all of our project areas if we have encroachment needs that need to be removed as part of the lands easements and right-of-way certification.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to add that I would like to echo Mr. Natoli and Mr. Harris's comments regarding, playing the role of a facilitator with regards to, helping folks determine how real it is to think that encroachments are permittable. Again, 50 pages is a lot to hand over to somebody to say, kind of work through it. I think I'd like to see something a little bit more focused, so we're not just telling people, yeah, it might be permittable. I think we want to just be a little bit more of a facilitator. I know it's not our decision, but we should be helping folks get to the right answer quicker.
We certainly can do that.
Okay, appreciate that. I don't have any speaker slips from members of the public wishing to speak on this item, so I'll entertain a motion or any additional questions. So was that Mr. Conant? A motion by Mr. Conant, second by Mr. Barandis. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you. Next.
Items 15 through 24 are correspondence and receive and file, and you have those in your board packets.
All right, great. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Can I speak to you?